But next up, we've got EJ and Bruno, and they are going to share with us updates on the Middle Creek flood damage reduction and ecosystem restoration project.
Hey, what is that? Is the light on?
Check, check.
All
right. So Middle Creek Flood Damage Reduction and Ecosystem Restoration Project. A lot of times we call it the, what is it we call it? The Middle Creek Restoration Project. It's really simplified. Yes. Because sometimes it gets a little confused with another project. But all in all, this is a project that I want to say that when Supervisor Sabatier and I started, it was interesting because Harry was here. Harry and Peter Winthrop, who used to basically head this project, had come to the Board of Supervisors and had wanted to see some more movement on it. And so after that presentation, Supervisor Sabatier and I decided, well, let's get together with them and put together an ad hoc committee. And we meet it monthly and started doing a lot more when it came to that. And so, so with the help and the plea of these two gentlemen, we've gotten a little further on it. And so, so we've just been plugging along. And I don't know if you want to add to that when they came to the meeting, but I remember you came to me and said, I think they were talking to us.
They were definitely talking to us. There's obviously a reason why EJ, being a District 3 supervisor, wants to be involved in this. It's right in the middle of his district. The reason for my interest is because I am the recipient of all of the stuff that happens in the lake, because everything gets pushed towards Clear Lake, obviously Clear Lake Oaks as well. And so I get the outcomes of what happens in our lake. And I want to see us having a more balanced lake. I'm not going to say a cleaner lake or a healthier lake, but a better balanced lake so that we can all benefit from what the lake is, wildlife, economics of it, and also the recreational part of the lake. One of the things that I really wanted to start off and harp on, and to me this is the important part of this science symposium, is we started with 9,300 acres of wetlands throughout the entire lake. 8% of that is completely gone or has been destroyed to the point that it does not function properly. Middle Creek Restoration is looking at 1,600 acres, but before anything changed, there was no agricultural activity and there was little to no human impact to nutrient load. And all of these things, everything we do as humans has an impact on our lake, because if we move soil in one way, shape, or form, at one point it has to go somewhere when it's loose, when there's heavy rains, so on and so forth. So there's not one specific thing that has impacted the lake, but we've all made an impact in some way, shape, or form. How can we do better? And we really feel Middle Creek Project is one of the key components to helping. It's not the full puzzle piece, but it's one of those puzzle pieces.
And when I was on the council in the 2000s, I got out of the Army. I was on the council for Robinson Rancheria. The Water Resources and Army Corps had come to the council then and talked to them about this project. We know this goes on and goes back to the 90s. And so when they talked to us then, there was just a talk about a rain levy, and I think that held some things up. We'll see a timeline later where we'll go into what that looked like during that time frame. So we'll just press ban that. There we go. And so as you can see, it was built in 1918 and 33. Obviously for Agnew Ag, they wanted to ensure that folks had flush land to do some agricultural activities. It was like a physical isolation of 1,650 acres of wetland and floodplain. And as I said, it was agricultural activity, but also Scotts Creek and Middle Creek flowed directly into the lake. And I'd like to just give a shout out to a gentleman who's not with us anymore, Paul Cole, who showed me some other areas of Clover Creek and how it actually went right across the street. Aside from this diversion that goes over to the Middle Creek where the bridge is, it actually went straight across into this channel to Robinson Lake at one time. So just an interesting fact, you know, but at one time that's how it flowed directly into that lake.
And so before this was Robinson Lake. And right through Robinson Lake, Scotts Creek and Middle Creek would meander throughout that whole region, allowing for the nutrients to drop, which is why it was a great agricultural area, because of the wealth of nutrients that were there. And so it would meander around. What would come out of it would be much better quality water because the nutrients had the chance to slow down and drop to the ground. Now, as you can see, it's a direct shot right into the lake. There is no slowing down of the water. There is no dropping of the nutrient loads before it reaches the lake. And that changed everything.
And there is a plume on that one area. If you notice when you go by Rotten Slough, there's like a little land of like vegetation and whatnot because of all the sediment that's running into that area. And so the reason for the project, and I think you've already kind of covered some of that already, but the Clean Lake study found significant degradation in Clear Lake's water quality between 20 and 40. The 1997 reconnaissance study established federal interest in restoring the project, and that's where a lot of this came forward as well. Knowing that this was not going to last for the quality of the lake and the sediment load and all of that. So the marshlands are important, as you know. Anderson Marsh is another area. Anywhere you go and you'll see a lake of quality, the marshlands are very important.
And we just heard from Dr. Velasquez, it's the exact same concept, just in a different region, trying to restore and rebuild those wetlands because every little piece is important as we try to recuperate what has been lost that has helped our lake be balanced. So this is the map, the original map of the design of the project for Middle Creek Restoration. It denotes where the old historic flows of Robinson Lake and Middle Creek going through it comes out. There is a difference. Here is where the water is coming out now. This would be the new area where the water would come out. So that was also mentioned by Dr. Velasquez, which there's interest in parcels outside of this project now that we need to figure out what to do. I believe Robinson Rancheria may own that property to the south. And so we're trying to figure out how we can work together or what can be possible. I know I spoke with Luis about that, but maybe it's the one next to that.
Yeah, it's next to it. This is owned by, one of the Rosikas.
Gotcha.
Oh, yes.
But so this has been in place since, I want to say 2000, is it 2008, 2002? Early 2000s is when this map was created. 1994 is when it was decided that this was probably going to be the best project for us to really pursue. It's 2024. Now, I think there's only 2 supervisors in here, so I could say this. On a personal level, this explains so much of the harm that we see to our communities, our economy, and the heart of our economy is the lake. And I'll get to that in an extra second, but it hurts me to know that we've been working on this since 1994. We've known about this since 1994, and that we're still struggling to get those things accomplished right now in 2024. And we'll tell you where we are and what our status is, but we really need. We have great people that are involved. Dr. Velasquez, Dr. Lyons, Dr. Lyons. He was a college instructor at my college, so he's legendary in many more ways than that. But it's going to take more than just our small group. There is the Middle Creek Alliance as well, but we need a lot more people to help push this along, to be part of our voice to really move this along. Because this project, again, not the puzzle piece that we need, but it's one of the most important puzzle pieces right in the middle of the puzzle, where your puzzle's just going to look horrible if you don't get that last piece right there.
One of the things too is that in this area, every landowner at one time had what was called MA-17 fees. And so in their taxes, they had to pay that to the state. But in order to get those levies maintained, which a lot of times a lot of the folks didn't feel like they were maintained, but each time that a parcel was bought or purchased, those fees went to another owner, or actually the remaining owners basically took over the OCS. And so that's one thing that took place. I know that in here it says the restore of fish and wildlife habitat, really hitch. And as we know, the hitch need a safe place to spawn and actually thrive. And so this area, if and when it's restored, will provide that. And we know that there's going to be nature. Birds are going to come down and do their thing, and other wildlife is going to do what they do. But this will help with that endangered species. It's going to also provide some water quality improvement. We all know that. We talked about it. And if you've been going to the Hitch summits, you probably heard them talk about how during this flooding situation, when we started getting water, that Thule Lake provided an area of respite for the fish, and that's possibly how they came down. And we know it's a theory, but at the same time, we know that this is the situation with this. And I actually brought it up to the EPA regional administrator, Martha Guzman, who came out and visited with the tribes, who's also partnering with the Middle Creek Restoration ad hoc committee. And so I told her about this. I'm like, look, this is another thing that can help the Hitch. Let's figure out a way to make this work synergistically so that way it can kill. I don't like using that word, but it can synergistically make sure that the fish are safe, the water quality is in place, and we can ensure that this provides the not vegetation, but the marshland that's needed. So, and she set up some meetings with the Army Corps, and that was going for a little bit. It worked out. We had a meeting in Sacramento. And Army Corps showed up, and we started having, I think it was monthly meetings. I know the tribes were engaged, and so I know that we probably need to harness them back in, but we've gotten a little further here and there.
So this is our current map. Everything that is gray has already been purchased by the county. Everything that is in blue is in the process of being purchased. The process is that we need to get a third party to do an appraisal of the property. We need approval from the property owners to even do that in the first place. Then we send it over to Water Resources at the State Department. They have to review it. They can deny our appraisal if they want to. Well, if they want to, with reason. And then we have to start all over again and try to get the new appraisal sent to them for approval. It can take up to 9 months between getting an appraisal, submitting it to the state, and getting it back with approval for us to start the escrow process. Then the escrow process takes time. And then eventually it comes to the Board of Supervisors and we approve the sale or the purchase of those properties. If there's buildings on the properties, we have to relocate the individuals. We can't just buy it and say, find your own place. There's a relocation portion or aspect to this project as well. Because the whole idea was flood control. And we wanted to make sure that those people were safe. So that's why we want to take this area over, restore the area, but move them into a safer location. So far, we've got about $20 million from the Water Resources from the state in order to purchase to purchase properties. We got some in 2002, something along those lines, 2002, 2008, and we got again 2018. We got $15 million in our last one. To be honest, we're a little worried that is there enough money to buy the rest of the properties? Property values aren't exactly going down, and we have to give the right market value. But so far we've acquired 62 of the 89. We are working now, which is exciting because that wasn't the case in 2019, on a monthly basis with the Army Corps of Engineers. They are doing a validation study to ensure that the previous study that created this project is still a viable project for the Army Corps to take on. And so they have finalized all of their conversations with tribes, with local government, and they are now finalizing their study that should be done in 2025. One of the other things that is part of this project that we're kind of struggling with, and we'll see how it goes, is PG&E. They have 7 large transmission towers. Those are the high voltage wires that are going through. And so they want us to pay to raise those towers, which would actually probably be cheaper than relocating those towers. But we're trying to figure out and negotiate with them how it is that's going to happen, because they're asking for about $7.5 million. It's about $1 million per tower. And so we have provided the funding through the county so that they can start designing what would that look like. We don't know what that looks like. And in fact, they're actually complicating our project because they want to make sure to have access to the towers. So they're almost asking us to build new levees in the middle of the project so they can access the towers. And we're trying to get rid of the levees so that we can restore the area. It's going to be a complicated conversation if we're going to get there, but that's where we are currently with the project.
Not to mention, I think it was 2019 or 20 when we talked to one of the BG&E reps then and asked, what happens if the levees break and they're submerged? I mean, so why are we raising them if that takes place and they're going to sink anyhow? We still haven't got an answer for that. And unfortunately, the new representative comes forward and we have to basically teach them again, what that's about. I think we talked about fish, but we can delve further into it. We talked about the fish and wildlife and the nutrient load entering into Clear Lake with this in place. It's going to provide. It's not silver bullet, but it's going to actually contribute in another facility.
And if I could just jump in real quick, I think 71%, I'm looking at Dr. Lyons, 71% of the entire nutrient load that's going into the lake comes through Middle Creek and Scotts Creek. This would reduce it by about 40%. It's not going to eliminate it, but it would reduce it by 40%. And that's a pretty large chunk of what's coming into our lake.
And another thing to add, and I don't know if we have it listed on, but we actually have a standing agenda item about Bloody Island, which Bloody Novelty is let me do this. Oh yeah. And so this is the area in this area right here. And so it's been it was owned by probably know Al Christensen, who's not with us. I had a lot of meetings with him. But he has since passed, and so we're now talking with his heirs and whatnot. But at the same time, it's a big deal. It's a big situation for that. It will be an island again, right? There's a lot of cultural vegetation that's on the road. If you ever go through it, you can see all of the different cultural vegetation that's in place, and that all in wormwood, I guess it's called something else. What do they call it? Mudwort. That's what it's called. But anyhow. So that's a real a factor to that. Another tribe, the Mental tribe has an issue as well that we're working on with them. We do have a couple of owners that are still really tough to deal with because they want specific things in place along with the sale. And so I'm not sure, it's not this group, but I think it's that group. It's the Cena, yeah, Cena or Seba or. I forgot what there's so many different names for it, but they're a group of Buddhists that don't want to see any wildlife killed, and so it's one of those situations. It's tough to get a hold of them. I know Harry and I have tried, but again, the Bloody Island situation is one at hand right now, and so.
So I want to highlight something, and this is on the bottom right here. This is from 1994 from the Clear Lake study. It estimated that there is a loss every year of $7 million because of the quality of the lake. If you turn that into 2024 dollars, that's $14 million a year. Let's just use the $7 million as a base. It's been 30 years. 7 times 30 is $210 million potentially that Lake County has lost from not being attractive to tourism in the way that it could be and should be. And that number to me is something that should always be highlighted as to, if we're losing $7 million a year, how much are we spending each year to try and save that $7 million a year? And I'll just be blunt. I don't think we've spent enough. I think we've been waiting for other people's money rather than trying to save ourselves. And that's why it's taken so long. And I think we need to look at this from a different perspective. If I know I'm bleeding, I can't wait for someone else to stop. I got to start doing something about it ourselves. And so I appreciate the work that EJ Crandell has done, that committee has done. But I think we need to get more people to understand that this is hurting our economy. It doesn't matter if the algae is in Clear Lake Oaks or in Clear Lake. When people read an article, just like the NASA article recently, and they hear something negative about our lake, they're not just going to say, I don't care, I'm going to go to Lake for it. They may not even know if they're not from here and they're tourists. And so the quality of our lake impacts the entire economy of Lake County. And if we don't start recognizing this leak of potential funds that goes directly to our local shops, our local businesses, which eventually becomes local taxes for our local government, which eventually becomes better infrastructure and better services to the people that live here, then we could start really realizing what are we missing out by not really moving this forward as fast as we can. Yeah.
So that's another reason why I want to put this up. I know that this is a timeline of what's taken place since, and this is on the website as well. But there's also another consideration. I know, I don't know if we already covered that, but there's 60% of the water that's used for consumption is in the lake as well. So this plays another factor. So when it comes to that, a lot of the water providers always put out, some warnings and letters and whatnot to boil the water. So that's on top of that, it provides another aspect of why we have to do this. But when you look through this, and I don't want to bore you with all of these, but it talks about it. And if everybody wants me to read through it, I can't. But I just wanted to show you at one time from 04 to 18, there was not a lot of that, right? And so that's why we're really trying to focus on it and keep it going. I know that there was all sorts of other issues taking place when it came to this. I do know at one time, I'll say this, Robinson was a factor in not meeting with the county. I want to say it was like 08 through 09 or 012 or something like that. So I know that there was an issue there. So it kind of locked some things up. But new leadership came in and started working a little more with them. But it makes sense, right? That there's not been a lot of movement when it comes to some of that.
And just to highlight also, because of the flood control between 1959 and 1962, levees failed, the reconstruction, 1983, levees failed, and then 1986, project area evacuated due to flooding. Whoever built these in the first place, Army Corps came after the fact in 1958. It wasn't very well thought out and planned for future generations to live in the area, hence why there was a need for that flood control portion of Middle Creek restoration.
All right, so we felt it was a need to show this timeline. And so I know we covered some of this as well, strategies, unwilling sellers, and we have 5 minutes. Okay. Unwilling sellers. We did get the time extension. I know that you mentioned that earlier.
Yeah.
And so when we had the funding, I want to say it was supposed to end in, was it 22 or 23? I think it was 23. And so, working with the Department of Water Resources, they gave us an extension, and we were glad about that. It still comes fast. So that's when we come to the strategies to discuss with unwilling sellers. And honestly, we've started talking about eminent domain, because that is another option. Of course, it's always last resort, but if you have unwilling sellers, you got to figure something. We also had a situation where Robinson had put some land into trust. And so that put us in a situation where when we met with Army Corps, we know that, trust land is basically goes through Bureau of Indian Affairs or Secretary of Interior. So meeting with them, we were able to identify that they could possibly work together. If you know about Moloch, Walker Ridge, there's one of the first co-management plants that are working there. And so the tribe will work with the agency when it comes to that. And so we're looking into doing that as well.
And we're building better partnerships. I don't know, there's no more mics. We're building better partnerships to continue moving the project. So I wanted to bring this up. I forget what year this was, 2012, I think, or something like that. They paid for satellite imagery. The red is where you can see a phosphorus load coming in. Orange is a little less, and yellow even less. But what I wanted to really highlight is it's not just Middle Creek. It's coming from everywhere. And so eventually we have to continue the work that Mary Jo was talking about, that it's not just restoring the Middle Creek area, it's restoring all of our creeks to ensure that we reduce the nutrient load that's coming in. We have a high phosphorus soil environment already to begin with, let alone not making sure that our creeks are minimizing the amount of nutrients that are coming into the lake. Ignore Thurston Lake, because that's just going to confuse me if I start talking about it. But this area as well, there's Burns Valley Creek, there's a lot of dirt roads in Clear Lake, there's a lot of stormwater that is bringing those nutrients into the lake. And so things have to change, not just for Middle Creek. We got everything that's highlighted is a place that we should be focused on to try and reduce, so that we can reduce the amount of algae that is in our lake. We can breeze through this.
Yeah, this is Congressman Thompson with I don't want to call it the name, but it's usually what do they call the funds? Or that he gets the discretionary gift. to his district or.
I believe it's community, well, it's earmarks, but it's community development funding.
I don't like using that word, but they always, it's not that. But so he was able to secure that for us. And we've been trying to build funding as well, because we know we have to buy the land, purchase the land, but we want to be ready so that when that's finished, we can jump right into the next stage and move forward rather than, oh, now we got to figure out the funding mechanism of it and then, issues with that. So, we put, what is it, 400,000 or 800,000?
We got $1 million so far set in cannabis taxes to help out with this project.
Right. And so incrementally, I think it was past, 4 years, we've done a certain amount, like 400,000, and then we just kept stacking on top of that, plus this, right? 750,000. So we want to make sure that we're ready to hit the ground once that's finished. And so he came out, we took him out there. As you can see, a lot of our, Jordan used to run, what's the main, project, manager of this, and Marina had left as well. We played a big part of getting a lot of this done as well. He came out and we took that picture and it was a really great event.
And so here's our group for the Middle Creek Committee. Obviously, the both of us here already talked about Dr. Lyons and Dr. Velasquez. We don't know who Dr. Valle is going to put in for the staff member that's going to continue working on Middle Creek Restoration, but it's a water resources staff member that will be represented. And our goal is just to keep moving this project forward and get it to completion.
Chair Cromwell was also from Robinson was in there, and as you can see, partners, Robinson come in as well. The county watershed and so on and so forth. We've all been working together to get this going. Of course, Barry, Peter, Mary Jo have been a big help to consistently move this forward and push the needle, because we need to really get on it. 2028 is going to come quick, and we don't want this to fall to the wayside like it did in 2004 to 2018. We don't want that. So.
Thank you very much. This is good work.
Sure, why don't you shout out some questions?
Any questions?
One of great, so.
The gray was all. So it was it was a question about what the colors meant on the map. The gray was already purchased by the county and owned by the county. The blue was in process of being purchased, meaning it was probably at the state level, or maybe we're in escrow. And the green were properties that we still needed to purchase.
Negotiated.
And within the green are the unwilling sellers as well. We didn't identify those separately.
How many?
Oh, the
I
red.
think we have about 5 unwilling sellers. Am I correct? Right around
3, 4. I think it's
So, we replace the towers with a little concrete building and bridge between.
So he's asking if we could put concrete around the towers to keep them safe.
Yeah.
That's not going to be, unfortunately, our decision. It's not our property. It's PG&E's towers. They're going to design it. Of course, we'll negotiate to try to make sure it's something that's feasible for us to even do. But I know that if you take Highway 20 towards Calusa and you look on your left-hand side, there's a wildlife preserve or a bird preserve area. I have seen those towers inundated again and again and again. So if those towers are okay, why do I have to lift your towers here?
Changes irrelevant because they're all saturated.
right.
I don't know enough to say yes or no to that, but we will continue those discussions, but we are not going to lay over for PG&E.
We can pose that question to them as well. Levees break. They're like, they're going to be submerged. That's what happens, right?
Thank you guys. Well, thank you guys so much.